Today on the Relocated South African podcast, I'm joined by Jesse Green, a fellow Lekker Network member, entrepreneur, advisor who has experienced both sides of the immigration journey. He's also the founder of apostille.co.za. More about that later. Jesse is based in Seville in Spain, which is exactly 3 hours away from where I am in Lagos. So welcome, Jesse.
Thank you very much, Jan. Thanks very much for having me.
It's lucky to have you. So just to start, I always ask the question, where did you grow up, go to school, and how did you get to leave South Africa?
Yeah, that is a very interesting story. To try and condense it into only less than a minute. My birth was in Stellenbosch, and I landed with my bum in the butter in that both my parents worked at the university, which allowed me to study there for free. After that, I moved to Cape Town, and I did a stint in Johannesburg as well. I also did a very short stint overseas teaching English in Russia. I've always been a traveler, always been someone who's very excited to travel, experience other cultures, not just go on to the most visited tourist spots. And there were push and pull factors for my decision to leave South Africa. I wasn't one of those South Africans that unfortunately had some a crime happened to them or something like this, or couldn't move up in my job or whatever. We hear lots of these reasons in the work that we do at Apostille. But I was more, it was more financial for me, what I called the double taxation, where you paid tax, but then you had to pay again to get proper service delivery for things like medical education and policing. As well as pull factors where there were better things overseas. Of course, one can always argue both ways. South Africa is also a wonderful country as well. I still have family there. I'm in the special position that I also have children in South Africa as well. So I'm back in South Africa very often. And so, yes, I have left South Africa in the one sense, and in the other sense, I haven't left the country. Why did I choose Spain? That was just because it was in Europe, and Spain and Germany were at the top of my list because I speak German, and at that time I didn't speak Spanish. And it was very hard on our Green Mamba passport to get into either of those countries. So I actually started with a sort of immigration loophole in Hungary, but once I found one in Spain, I moved straight to Spain.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about Russia. Tell us, when was that? When did you live in Russia?
That was very long ago. That was 21 years ago in 2005. I was there. I was in I can't call it a small town. It was a small city, Yekaterinburg, just over the Ural Mountains, 2 hours flight to the east of Moscow. And I taught English there in a time when not many people there did speak English. And it was quite exciting, and really immersed myself in the culture, and did very well with the language, although my Russian is very rusty now. So I think I've taken it off my LinkedIn profile. I can't remember. But yeah, it was an absolutely amazing time, and it has given me a great perspective into Russia and Russians. While we are currently in a time where, at least from the West, they are often considered with a certain generalization based on the war. So yeah, I have a very different perspective to most of my peers.
That's so interesting because I know I don't know if you know, I had a guy on the podcast the other day who lives in Lviv in Ukraine, South African
Yes.
guy.
Mhm.
And it's interesting to hear the perspectives. I think there are so many perspectives on this thing. One that's driven by mainstream media, and the real perspective. So that's so interesting. So when did you end up in Spain?
So Spain, well, the way that I left South Africa was probably different to most, especially for people who are leaving with families or leaving for work or many other reasons. The way I left was in 2017/18. And the reason I say it like that so broadly is because I started coming back to South Africa, going over for a longer period of time, coming back to South Africa, until eventually I was in Spain most of the time. Due to a change in my circumstances, I would have been very happy to be bouncing between the two countries on a more regular basis. but I have a wife and a child in Spain now. So obviously I'm more tied to spending more time here. So it's 2017, 18. So I always say that I've been here for 8 years so far.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
And Jesse, when you think about living in Spain, I mean, your situation is probably different to a pure immigrant because you have a partner, wife who's actually Spanish. But
Yes.
is that very different to what you would say the typical South African would be, who arrives there, goes on the South Africans in Spain group, and he tries to meet other South Africans? Is your
Yes.
journey a bit different?
Yes, well, my journey did start off with me being on my own, with me being single here. So I would say one difference is that it is somewhat more challenging to meet people. Obviously, if you have a partner or a very good friend in the country that you're moving to, you have much quicker access to meet other people as well. I would say in the beginning, I went to a lot of events where just foreigners in general. I don't think I ever even met a South African, maybe once or twice. Um, where in general there are foreigners there that speak your language, so that you can start to try and get, other contacts and make other friends, other connections. I think some people would probably also look at going to find their church or some place of worship in their area. I don't have that, but I know that that works well for some people. There are those groups on Facebook too. South Africans in sunny Spain is one of them. And yes, they occasionally do have events, although obviously there are not that many South Africans in Spain. So it is difficult to connect with them here. I recall once there was a poll on that group that said, "Where are you based in Spain?" And I was the only person that ticked Sevilla. So I don't know if there are many others. We also had a South African Afrikaans travel episode or series that was saying, "Are there any South Africans in Sevilla we'd like to interview?" And at that time, I wasn't in Spain, and I said to them, "Can you wait?" And they couldn't wait. And I asked them afterwards, "Did you find anyone?" And they said no.
Oh,
So
wow.
it seems like there aren't many South Africans in Sevilla, or if any. But that's okay. I travel so regularly within the country and to other countries. I have my fill of South Africa and South Africans. I'm not worried about that.
And I must say, Seville is just a magnificent place and
Yes. Yes.
beautiful city and wonderful golf courses. So take that from me. It's a great place. So what do you, I mean, like and appreciate about Spain? Is the food, the wine, the
Oh,
weather?
golly, so many things. I mean, it is an absolutely amazing country. I am very happy here. I think the only challenge people do ask me for a South African coming here, if I compare it to a country such as Portugal, is the lack of English. There is actually quite a bit of English here, but you don't easily find it. Spanish are quite shy. In fact, the easiest way for me to get a Spanish to speak English in the beginning was to try and speak my Spanish, which was poor in the beginning. And once they heard that, they switched to English and they realized their poor English is better than my poor Spanish. But that changed later, and I noticed that they no longer changed into English. So one key thing, but wherever you go in the world, you need to try and immerse yourself in that culture. You're never going to be 100% that culture, or I'm never going to be 100% Spanish, even if I try, um, because I'm not originally South African, and I will eventually have Spanish citizenship and be Spanish, and I'll be Spanish enough to be a Spanish citizen, and that's fine. But a big part of cultural immersion is the language. In any country, wherever you go, even if you go to America, they still speak English. Some of us will disagree. They still speak English, but they speak it differently. They have different ways of saying things. They have different cultural innuendos when they say things, and so you need to get into that, and that's incredibly important. So Spanish has been a challenge for me. I've taken about 3 times as long to get to the same level as I was in Russian, because in Russia there was no choice. No one speaking English except when I was giving class, and that everyone is speaking Russian. If you don't study this, you're gonna really suffer, and in many situations. And in the beginning, it was very daunting, but because you're forced to, you do. Whereas in Spain, especially also if your partner speaks a lot of English to you and you work still in English with English people, it's going to be a challenge to find your way with the language. So I really had to put my mind down and pen to paper and take lessons and do that, to the point where now I'm very comfortable wherever I go. I have no concerns about picking up the phone and doing things. And there are situations where I need one word or something like that. But my point here is you really do need to learn the language. And what other thing? Well, you actually asked me what things are good about Spain. Well, the food is phenomenal. The weather is one of the best in Europe, especially in the south of Spain. In the north of Spain, they complain there's too much rain, but heaven forbid you go to Germany or Sweden or something like this. So the weather is very good. The travel opportunities are amazing. There's lots of business opportunities. This is one of the most visited countries of for tourists. We're often switching between France as the number one and number two. There's beautiful scenery, lots to do. It's not expensive in comparison to the rest of Europe. And there are lots of options now to get into Spain. And yeah, I would say it's just a phenomenal place to be. And I think many South Africans have been to Spain because, as I say, it's a very well visited tourist destination. So I would say it should actually be on one of them up there. If the South African is not sure yet where they want to go, and if they are open to not going to an English-speaking country like the USA or Australia or US or UK, or one of those, then if they're looking in Europe, I would seriously consider Spain and Portugal, where you are, where there's more English, as options to emigrate to. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think just a point on, when you immerse yourself, for me, it's about respect for the country that you're living in. You kind
Right.
of, yes, I'm a resident and whatever, but I'm a guest. I can't make them South African. I'd rather,
Yes.
respect their culture and
Yes.
behave in a decent way. And I think that's an important thing. I think a lot of people, say, no, I'll forever be South African and stuff that. So I think for me, that's a critical thing. But I
Yes.
like what you say when you speak on the phone. When I was in France, I've felt for myself that I was now at a fine level when I could answer the phone in French and they responded back in French. So I know exactly where you're coming from.
Sure, in France, they're going to respond back in French.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know what they were saying, but at least they did. Jesse, just interesting talking about Spain as a destination for immigration. The one thing I'm not sure of, and it's a question that comes up, is the whole tax situation
Mhm.
for expats. If you arrive in Spain, how difficult is the tax situation?
Yes. I'm actually not sure how it is if you arrive tomorrow, as in very recently, if there's been any changes. Um, I I don't think we have anything like the Netherlands has, where you have the 30% rule and these sort of things. So as far as I understand, you would just if you were paying tax in Spain. And again, some people may still be paying in South Africa. They need to deal with the double taxation and all of
Okay.
that stuff. But for me now, having tax immigrated from South Africa, paying in Spain, I fit just into the standard taxation slots. And the taxation is, I would say, for most people, I would guess, is going to be a little bit more than South Africa. At least the tax brackets are quite similar, actually. They're always within 1 to 5% only different to South Africa, as far as I've seen. I could be corrected by someone in finance. However, there are many deductions here, and of course, there's not the double taxation where you have to pay again for services. Here, you barely would need. I mean, again, some Spanish people would argue with me, and wherever they live, they're far more afraid of someone may break in, but there's not going to be any break-ins here. Unless they know you have something of extreme value in your house, maybe then. But so there's good policing. There is, the police here. I can go up to a policeman and have a great chat with him, and I just feel like he's my friend. Whereas in South Africa, I don't feel like they're not my friends, but I wouldn't go up to them and have a chat. I would try to avoid them, uh, and education. You can get a good quality education for very minimal price, and also healthcare.
I was
There
going
are
to
some
yeah.
wait times, but healthcare is excellent. So you may pay the same or even a bit more tax, but you'll get really good services.
Okay, and healthcare, I mean, that comes up in a lot of conversations.
Mm.
Is it all run by the state, or do you have private health that you pay for? How does it work?
Yes, you can have private healthcare, which is again very high quality. But I must say that because I have both for a number of reasons, but I would say that sometimes you go to the private healthcare, or sorry, sometimes you go to the state healthcare because it's closer or some reason like that. And actually you think, well, why am I paying the private healthcare?
Mm.
Other times, like someone I know here who needed an elderly man who needed a knee replacement, the wait time was very long.
Mm.
And luckily, he was also covered in Germany. So when he went there, the wait time was 2 weeks.
Mm.
So, again, there may be ups and downs to that. But for myself in my 40s, I probably don't need the private healthcare insurance.
But I think it's the same in Europe everywhere. That
Yes.
here, if you're in real trouble and you have a major accident or something happens to you, a heart attack, the state will look after you big time.
Very
But
well.
don't go for elective surgery, because then you will wait. It's the
Correct.
same
Yes,
story.
correct. I think it's very, very much the same thing. One of the
Yeah.
reasons I have private insurance, for example, is because of my extreme travel.
Yeah.
So it actually saves me money to not have to take out travel insurance each time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can imagine. And you briefly touched on cost of living. Just
Mm.
you travel around Europe a lot, and so do we. And obviously, Portugal is probably at the lowest end of the cost of living in Europe. But what's it like in Spain?
I could have searched this on a calculator online, I guess. But it certainly in terms of Europe, it's low.
Mm.
We can go here and go and have a beer or a coffee, and I find that if I compare the price of that to what I pay in Germany, it's going to be half. Or in other countries, obviously Norway has always said it's got the highest costs, but man, it really is inexpensive. Of course, there are restaurants you can find where you're going to pay higher prices, and somebody else can argue about the quality of but in general, you're getting good food at a really low price here. And I can tell you that any tourist that's been to Spain will tell you whenever they've ordered their beers that they just get these tapas for free, and just so much food just comes at them, and it's all just so cheap, and they just can't believe it. They're just laughing. So yeah,
Yeah, it's so interesting. I always compare with my daughter who lives in Dublin, and they
oh,
will pay for a glass of wine what we pay for a bottle, for instance.
correct.
And
That sort of
it's pretty much, if we look at food in a pub or a sort of a bistro type of environment, they
yes.
will pay double what we pay in Portugal. And people tell me South Africa has become really expensive as well. So, the
Yeah,
inflation has caught up there. I haven't been for a while, but
yeah.
it sounds like the inflation is catching up there as well.
Yeah, slowly, I think the cost of living is increasing in South
Yeah.
Africa. And I think in Africa in general, you need to have a good amount of money to have a good life. If you
Yeah.
don't, no one's going to look after you. So yeah.
You said that you travel a lot. On average, how many days a year do you spend away from home?
I actually calculated this in for 2024, it was a third of the year. I think it was 122 days. So it was 33% of my time was spent not sleeping in my bed at
Wow.
home. So I was around the world going back to South Africa, uh, and um, and then also traveling around the world. And sometimes I vlog about that on my YouTube channel. I go back to South Africa quite a lot because, as I mentioned, I still have 2 children there, and I also still run my business and have friends and family there, like I think most people do. So there's a lot for me to go back to sometimes to handle. So I'm in South Africa around 6 or 7 times a year.
Well, tell me, how did this business, apostille.co.za, how did
Yeah.
it come about?
Yes. So Apostille, Apostile, is the name of the company. The actual word for an apostille is with 2 L's and an E. So Apostille. And that's a stamp on a document for international use. But during my during my immigration to Spain, I needed to get a horde of documents for the Spanish.
As we all do.
There's one thing that the Spanish are not very famous or infamous for is that it's called papeleo in Spanish, that you need a heck of a lot of documentation. So all documents needed to be less than 3 months old. I was told even my birth certificate needed to be less than 3 months old. Uh, and and so basically, I needed to go and get all these documents ready. I needed to have them apostilled and translated. And this was a real job, getting this whole document pack ready. I didn't have all the documents ready. And my passport was, had a lot of time left on it, but the documents were the challenge. So I even had an Excel spreadsheet making sure I had them all ready at the same time. And this prompted me to require assistance because I couldn't get to Pretoria for these apostilles. Or rather, I maybe could, but then it would have cost me a lot of time and money. So, was there anyone there who could do it? And the actual original document needs to be apostilled. So, I found a few companies online, but to be honest, their websites didn't imbue a lot of trust with me. Some of them said, "Send it to me, and here's my Gmail address and my cell phone number." And I looked at the price that they were charging, and I thought that's per document, but it's the same person in the queue. And I thought, well, this is now actually maybe an opportunity for me to open something up, like this. And what else do South Africans need help with when they're going overseas? Bank accounts and SIM cards in South Africa, or I don't know, what do they need assistance with? So, um, that was the birth actually of Apostille as a company that would assist South Africans at home. Your sort of person at home who would assist you with whatever you required while you're overseas or while you're emigrating. It very quickly went down the route of documentation because I found that the demand was extremely strong in that area, documentation and visa assistance. We do still help with one or two other things, but they are things that almost relate to documents like ancestral searching and those sort of things. But very quickly, we had a lot of people interested in us assisting them with apostilles, obtaining birth certificates, police clearances, registering marriages and divorces, doing certain tasks in South Africa. And the company grew quite quickly. And yeah, as I say, I was in and out of South Africa, to the point where almost 10 years later, we've serviced over 20,000 South Africans, both outside and inside South Africa. And we have a host of services now on our website. We have a team of between 10 and 20 people, depending on how you count them, because some people we only use in certain situations. Because we have representation across all 14 high courts in the country. So if you need something from the Bloemfontein High Court, we can also assist you there, but then we use a third party. So I can't really say they're part of our team, but on the other hand, they are. So between 10 and 20 people. And we also have a notary on board. So a lot of the requirements that South Africans have are assistance with legal things, whether it's an anti-nuptial contract because they're getting married overseas or whatever it may be. So we find that the business has been really successful. It's still growing. We are very engaging with South Africans abroad. We deal with hundreds of them every single day. And yeah, we hope long may it last. Although, if I may just add in there that we do also hope that some government departments in South Africa do make it easier for South Africans abroad in the future, even if that may be detrimental to our business. We are pro South Africa as well as pro going and exploring the world. So yeah, that may be a case, but you're always going to need an apostille if you're using a document abroad in a country which is also part of this apostille convention. Then they're going to need to know that that document is legit, and an apostille verifies the stamp and signature on that document, and you're going to need that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, just stepping back to when you started the business, what were you actually doing at the time?
Yes, that's a good question. I started off in recruitment out of university. That's when I moved up to Joburg. I had my stint in Russia, but I was very quickly drawn to the digital side of recruitment, or just online, and eventually left recruitment to start something online. It was more in e-commerce. It was very similar to those Groupon websites you saw long ago. So cut my teeth there in many of the facets of running an online business. But over the next few years, really what I chiseled out for myself was I didn't like these adverts online where it's just you're paying it's called CPM. You're just paying when the advert loads and maybe the person didn't see it. And then the next level closer to a sale is you're paying for a click. And I didn't like that either, because what if the clicks don't convert? And the next level is you're paying for someone to fill in a form on your website. And that I liked, because now, as long as the form is correct and the rest of the marketing's been done right, then, you can sell this lead, and the company, they've got the staff to turn this into a sale. And so I could operate on my own like that. So I did a lot of lead generation for a very long time,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed that a lot. And that's actually what I thought I would do in the beginning with Apostille. But as I say, within a year, I was so inundated. I needed to hire my first, assistants, and that's what has happened since. Yeah.
So, I mean, the question that comes up in my mind is, and we've all been through it. I bet every single person that listened to the podcast or that I've interviewed has had the same issue. Is you doesn't matter how much money you have, you still need documents. You know, and
Right.
is this born? Was it born out of inefficiency or lack of knowledge on
Yes.
part of the consumer?
It's both to a degree, but also the fact that as you say, no matter how you put your pants on in the morning, actually, no, everyone puts their pants on the same way in the morning. This is what I was taught in recruitment. Don't worry about talking to the CEO. He puts his pants on the same way in the morning. So no matter who's putting on their pants in the morning, they're going to need documentation, and they're going to need it whether they leave South Africa or not. They're going to need this for many reasons. For example, if you get married, the High Court isn't passing all these, divorce. The High Court's not passing all these divorce decrees to Home Affairs and getting them registered. You've got to go and register your divorce. So we constantly have people we've got an automated marital status check on our website. I think it's the only one that exists at the moment for South Africans online. And you just, every single day we have people saying, oh, but that's incorrect. I'm not married, or I'm not divorced, or luckily, we haven't had anyone say, I'm not widowed. But the bottom line there
But
is
maybe.
you're going to need something. And if you are very rich, well, then you can obviously pay somebody to do it for you. But you don't actually have to be that rich. You really can pay people to do these services for you. And it's a much better bet. I had the same experience myself when I applied for my first Spanish residence permit. I applied for the incorrect permit in the incorrect way and got denied. And as soon as I resigned myself to the fact that I need assistance with this, I went to an expert immigration firm in Madrid. They applied for the correct permit in the correct way, and in 2 weeks I had it in my passport. It was literally that fast, because in Cape Town they're not processing many of those. Got an appointment fast, went in there fast, and it was easy for them to see that I qualified, and it was just done.
Yeah.
So, that's the difference in result, that if you go and try and do it yourself, and that is the inefficiency you speak about. Unfortunately, there is a lot of government inefficiency in South Africa. It's not only South Africa, all over the world, there's government inefficiency. There are countless businesses all over the world that are up and running because of government inefficiency. VFS is one of those. Visa facilitation services is a massive firm servicing so many governments all over the world with their embassies and even in their own countries, and earning lots of money paid by the consumer, to facilitate things for the government, because they couldn't hire people themselves to handle these things more efficiently. So we are simply one of those, and it's not about who you know, it's about what you know, because we know what type of person is able to avoid a home affairs queue. A marriage officer, for example. We know which box to tick and which box not to tick. We know which door to go and knock on to say, hey, have you actually received this verbally to someone? We know where to drive to. We just have so many ins in so many ways that it would be impossible for somebody on their own to go and do all of those things. So it's just, how much is your time worth? Yeah,
Mm.
but I'll end on this. Sorry, and I'm taking up a lot of time with this
No.
answer. End on this. This is a classic one where at least once a week I'll have someone say to me, "But how can you charge us to do this, whereas it costs me 150 rand to do this at Home Affairs?" And then I just literally say to them, "But does it really cost you 150 rand to do that at Home Affairs? Because when you take into account simply the time it takes you to stand there, to get in, to then stand in another queue and pay that money, to then be told something like you don't have it in cash, or you, I don't know, whatever thing, and then to have to come back again, or, if you get it, the application in, then you must take another day's leave to pick up the document or whatever it may be. You don't know how long it's going to take, all of these stress factors. So it really is not 150 Rand, it's thousands of Rands. And for some people whose time is a lot of money, 1,000 Rand an hour, this will cost you 5,000 Rand because you're going to spend 5 hours on it. And when you see it from that perspective, you actually realize that it's far better that, for me to get a birth certificate, I'd have to make an appointment in Madrid at my own cost, make my way to Madrid, to the embassy, make the appointment, and then I still don't know when I'm getting that birth certificate. Then I must go again and collect it if they don't courier it to me. And instead, I can literally sit in my house watching Netflix, or working, earning money, and wait for the doorbell to ring 3 weeks later with DHL saying, "Here you go." So, basically, it's just a no-brainer.
So, I mean, just so many questions because we've all been through it. That's why my mind's going like this. But so, if let's take it to a South African who's thinking about immigrating.
Yes.
The typical last thing you think about is the documentation. Maybe when they apply for a visa or residence or whatever. But it sounds to me like the earlier you start the process, the better it is, and the earlier you start getting it good advice, the better it is. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would say that, because typically, I mean, you're not going to say in 10 years I'm going to emigrate. That's obviously too early. But even if you say in a year's time, we have this phrase in the office, document ready. So are you document ready? I mean, even at this stage in your life, if you're listening to this and you say, I'm never going anywhere, but are you document ready? Do you actually have a birth certificate, a marriage certificate, or a divorce decree? Is your status correct on the Home Affairs Population Register? Do you have XYZ? Are you document ready? Because many things can happen at any time. And we find people for any reason rushing to us, all of a sudden needing something. So yes, you must ask yourself, what documents do I actually need for this immigration process? Try to find out. Usually it's quite easy to find out upfront what you require. An old handwritten birth certificate is not going to count as much as an unabridged birth certificate that's been recently stamped is, because you can't get an apostille on a very old document. If the person who stamped and signed it no longer works for Home Affairs, you can't have it apostille. So yeah, it's quite a big thing, and I would say a year to 6 months before would really be ideal to ask yourself, are you document ready? And if you aren't sure, give us a call, or go and have a look on these Facebook pages, government websites, where people are actually, let's say it's Australia. Go and look on the government website, see what documents are required. AI might be wrong, but at least it can give you an idea. And it's very important to plan. And that was the other thing you spoke about, government efficiency versus people needing to plan. Yeah.
And Jesse, in terms of the typical services that you provide, let's say within the South African context, Home Affairs, police clearances, that kind of thing. I mean, how wide is that range of service that you can provide? For instance, a lot of people are asking about these certificates that you need to exchange your driver's license. I mean, that's one that
Yes, yeah, we do that as well. That is something that one can do on one's own, but very often it's quite delayed. And most countries have the rule where I actually don't think I've seen a country where it's different, where for the first 6 months you can drive on your South African driver's license. But one day after, you can get huge fines if you're not using that country's driver's license. And not every country has an agreement with South Africa to exchange a driver's license. Spain doesn't. I had to start all over again.
really, we're lucky we could exchange.
Yes, I'm aware of that. So basically, you need to get that document. We do offer that document. We offer documents for exporting your vehicle. We offer a lot of documents around businesses and tax with SARS, although typically people can get those themselves relatively easily if they have an accountant or something like that. We offer a lot of legal documents, powers of attorney, contracts if you need something set up. Stuff that can be done or uplifted at the High Court, anything at Home Affairs, pretty much. ancestral research. You mentioned SAPs. We can also do expungements where some people qualify to have a record removed. We wanted to offer the the what's it called where you renew the registration disc on your car, but we
Okay.
found there's so much competition there. I mean, you can basically do it on your Capitec app. So we don't offer that at the moment. We also wanted to offer a number of things in the financial space, but we're not an FSP, so we can easily refer people to that. What we can't help people with is when they apply for a passport or an ID or driver's license. Obviously, driver's license is an eye test. It's in South Africa. Can't do that on your behalf. An ID and passport, we aren't you. We can't sit for your photo, and we can't give your fingerprints. But but in South Africa, we can get you appointments at a Home Affairs, so that you don't need to stand in a queue. So there's just so many things that we
That
can
you
assist.
can do. You mentioned previously that you also deal with even tourist visas and
Correct.
making appointments, because that always seems to be an issue, getting an appointment.
Yes.
For instance, the US Embassy, are you able to get people appointments there?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So we do short-term or short-stay visas at the moment. We may look at long-stay visas in the future. Short-stay visas are tourist or business visas where you go for, as it says, tourism or business, maybe a sports event or something like that. So people are constantly buying tickets and tours to go to, I don't know, all over the world, and many of these countries, South Africans need visas for. So the US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, all of Europe, the Schengen zone, Japan is quite a big one, into Africa. Wherever you need to go, we can help you with a short stay visa,
Nick,
and the documentation for that as well. Yeah.
Nick said you were very helpful with his Irish visa, because
Yeah. Oh,
becoming an issue to get a visa
yes.
to go to Ireland as well.
Yes. You mean Nick Latouche? That's one of
Yeah,
the
yeah, Nick, yeah.
Latin. Yes. Correct. Yeah.
I just, yeah.
Mm.
No, I mean, because that seems to be quite an issue for South Africans for Schengen visa. Can you even get appointments for people overseas? People who live in Ireland who want to go to a Schengen country. How difficult is it to get an appointment for those people?
Yeah, so that unfortunately we can't do. We can only help someone. It doesn't have to be a South African, but we can only help people in South Africa at the South African visa application
Okay.
centers or embassies. But I have heard that in some countries it's really hard to get appointments
Oh, it's
as
crazy.
well. But we have some contacts overseas that we can refer people to, and sometimes they come right anyway. Yeah.
So it's worth checking with you before
Yes,
they give up, because I hear that's a big problem. Like in Ireland, people wanting to go across to France and they can't, because they can't get a Schengen visa, and simply
correct.
because they can't get an appointment. So
Correct. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
maybe
We,
so.
we deal with a huge amount of travel agents and travel agencies. They are very good, and it's their business to sell tours and tickets, flights and so on. But they almost never handle the visa side of it. And when the client says, I need a visa, or do I need a visa, then they need to start giving advice on where to go. And they are very happy to hand over to us, and we pay them a healthy commission for handing the client over to us. So yeah, travel agents and in the tourism industry are actually quite active now.
And if you think about your clients, you talk about more than 20,000 people. What would you say is the biggest mistake that people make in terms of
Yeah.
doing these documents and getting access? Because it's almost like a grudge purchase, isn't it? I mean, you have to have it, but you don't really
Yeah, I mean,
want.
maybe it's a grudge purchase in the sense that, as you say, you must have it, so there's no choice. But I think for many of the people, it's a relief that there's a place you can go
Mm.
to and pay. I mean, we've done stuff pro bono once or twice for people, and they've asked us, "Please, can we pay you for this?" So I think most, as I say, some people say, "Oh, but it's only 150 rand at Home Affairs," but most people are actually saying to us, "Thank goodness we have over 2,000, 5-star reviews and very few one-star review or low reviews on Google and another reviews website." And actually, one of the reasons we really do this work is, and we really feels fulfilling, is when you see the absolute relief and see the emails coming through from people and on the phone of how much we've actually helped them, um, and how we've made a change to their life. And I'll give you a very quick example, which we have this at least once or twice a month, where someone wants to get married. They're living overseas. They're getting married now overseas to their partner who's a citizen of that country where they're getting married. And they obviously happy and in love, and it's a big day and all of that. And what they haven't thought of is that as a South African, still they need to prove that they're not married back in South Africa. And this document is sometimes called a single status certificate in some countries. In South Africa, it's called a letter of no impediment. Nothing impedes you from getting married.
From getting married.
And so a letter of no impediment from Home Affairs needs to be issued by Home Affairs, of course, and then apostilled sometimes and translated and whatever. And, it's now 2 weeks to the day, and they've already booked the hall and all the guests are flying in and all of this stuff. And they suddenly find out they don't have this document. And as you can imagine, in someone's mind, emotionally, the trauma that they go through, and then they find us and they come to us and we say, okay, obviously something may still go wrong, but we should be able to help you. And you can't imagine these people's relief. And then we get the document to them, and the marriage officer there on that side says, this is fine. Yeah, you just can't imagine how it's changed. So I suppose there the thing is, the biggest challenge for people, the biggest issue for people is that not about a grudge, it's just that they haven't done their homework. So if you do, like I said, be document ready. So if you're document ready, because you can apply for this at your embassy, and you should be able to get it in 6 months time. So if you've done that, then you've done your homework, and you won't pay late school fees or whatever you want to call them. But luckily for those cases, there are cases where people cannot do it upfront. They only just got a recruiter phone them with a headhunting phone call, and 3 weeks later they have an offer that they're going to accept. But now in 1 month they must produce a police clearance to get a new updated work visa with this new company's name on it and stuff like this. So they need a police clearance now. They need it now, and they couldn't have foreseen that. So there are those cases, and it's good to know that there's someone on the ground in SA that can look after you. So yeah,
I was going to say there must be anecdotal stories of really just in time, last minute solutions. I'm sure there must be many of those.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a actual story where we have, but we have had cases where the person says, I'll pay you triple if you can just get this for us. And we always tell them, look, we're not going to charge you triple, but we just can't promise you that we can get. And then we pull out all the stops, and they'll require that document on the fastest timing, and they'll pay the fastest timing price. But we'll really try. We'll drive in an extra drive. We'll make some extra phone calls and really see what we can do. But yeah, there are cases where unfortunately it's just too late, and you've got to try and move that visa appointment or whatever it may be. Yeah.
Oh. I mean, maybe it's a stupid question, but what causes the biggest delays in the processing that you do?
Oh golly. That is a good question. I mean, the biggest delays ever are caused by things like a few years ago, SAPS didn't pay the CRC, the Criminal Record Center, where they issue the police clearances, didn't pay their rent. I think it was even on the news, and so the landlord locked the building up. So it doesn't matter if you were working through us or if you had submitted it from wherever or whatever you had done. Every police clearance in the world that had arrived at the CRC was going to be delayed, and it was delayed until finally that was lifted, and that was 3 weeks. So it literally did not matter who you were or what you did. There was no police clearance coming to you unless you waited 3. So I think that's the biggest delay that we've ever had. We've had all kinds of funny things like buying ink, and when Home Affairs said there's no ink to print, so then we went and bought ink and said, here's the ink, let's print. A lot of different moving parts working very well together to get people's stuff. I sometimes tell my friends, it's like, imagine you have this banana, but it's really perfect and it's ripe, and you've got to get it from here to there, and it's got to be done, and everyone, let's all work together. And we do. And that banana comes to you, and it's perfect and still ripe and nice and cold from the fridge.
I guess, also we're talking about delays is your your capturing of information of the client must be
Yes,
perfect so that that doesn't cause a delay. You arrive with a document that's not correct or
absolutely.
whatever. So,
Yeah, that's correct.
yeah,
We have a CRM system. We adhere to the POPI law in South Africa. You can see that report and everything on the bottom of our website. Download that. So we are very good with people's information and very trustworthy with everything. And we obviously receive tons of even unsolicited documents every day. So yeah, we have no, and we work with really trusted couriers like the Courier Guy and DHL. I think in the 8 or 9 years that we've been operating, DHL has only once ever lost a document,
wow,
which we then went and got reissued and we sent off to the client.
that's
So
amazing.
that was very good.
We're getting towards the end. Just question about, as an entrepreneur building a business from Spain in South Africa and around the world, how difficult is that? What advice would you have to somebody doing that?
Oh, I would say, first of all, it is difficult. Obviously, you're not on the ground in South Africa. Number two, I would say recruitment and people. Luckily, I had recruitment, as I mentioned, in my career earlier. So I was very well trained in interviewing people and picking up things about people. And the people who've been working with us for 6 and 7 years are still there. We're a very happy bunch. And I think that that if once you have the right person in place, that's really going to reap a lot of rewards. And if you don't know how to recruit, then rather hire someone who can assist you, because that's going to be a big challenge. And then I would also say that if you it depends on what sort of control you have and what sort of business you have. If you're manufacturing something, you obviously need a physical office. If you are like us, you can consider more remote work. So that's something to also think about. Again, that revolves around people. And I would say that if you're based overseas, that you're going to have to go into South Africa every now and again. I think it would be challenging to run your whole business from abroad without going to South Africa once in the year.
Yeah, yeah. Last question. When you go back to South Africa from Spain, what's the first thing that you do that you cannot do in Spain?
I mean, I guess I walk in the garden barefoot. Well, I can walk in the garden here barefoot, but I'm not saying I want to go to the shops barefoot. But Spanish people are more prim and proper. So even in summer, you'll find a lot of people are wearing shoes and not wearing their slip slops. And I miss other things that I miss that I would definitely buy once I get to the shops would obviously be biltong.
Uh-huh.
There's actually some good quality biltong around overseas, but it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And obviously, friends and family try to go to the beach. I'm from Cape Town, so got to go to the mountain. So those are the kind of things, that you do. I mean, generally, with things I notice people miss when I'm looking online are food products, very much so.
Mm.
And we partner with a lot of South African shops overseas. We're looking to partner with many more, and there are quite a number. And so, yeah, I think those are the things that I look to do. Get out
Awesome.
in nature, yeah.
Well, I think this is probably a good time to say that the Relocated South African will be partnering with Apostil.co.za in the future, and we look forward to working with you, Jesse. I'm looking forward to a fruitful partnership. And
Yeah, thank
thank
you very much. I'm pretty sure all your listeners, all South Africans who are in South Africa thinking of emigrating or have already emigrated, have a need for either our services or just to have a chat with us or to know about us, because we can always tell you what we're seeing in the market and what we're hearing about, and give you some free advice. Yeah.
so best for people to contact you would be on your website, apostil.co.za. There's a contact form there.
Correct. There's a form, there's a Joburg number, there's a WhatsApp line you can contact us on. We are very happy to call you back if it's expensive for you overseas, as it is for a lot of South Africans. And email is fine as well. So yeah, we've got
Okay.
we've got it all there.
And just confirming, it's apostil.co.za without the double LE. So,
That's correct.
yeah, awesome. Jesse, thank you so much for sharing your journey. your business, your perspectives. Really, really interesting. I love the conversation, and thank you very much. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. I look forward to hearing from many South Africans abroad, and thank you once again, Jan, for having me on your show.
Awesome. And to our listeners, if this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone who might enjoy the conversation. You can find more episodes of The Relocated South African on your favorite platform, or visit our website, therelocatedSouthAfrican.com. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.